Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about the United States Senate composition and how polarized our nation has actually become, and talk about the impact of that on our Senate races. So I made a video discussing why the Democratic Party would actually have some trouble in the immediate future focusing on the Senate elections, and that largely had to do with the fact that the Senate races are closely mimicking what we see on the presidential level. And more times than not, that actually hurts the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party doesn't win the majority of the states every single time they win. Joe Biden, I believe, won 25 states this election. So it wasn't as if there was this overwhelming victory for Joe Biden on the statewide level. I mean, he won by narrow amount in certain states. But you also have to point out that Donald Trump did very well in a number of states, enough so that even as a losing candidate, he won roughly 50% of the entire United States electorate, more so 50% of the states themselves. But that really matters for the Senate races. Each state has the same number of representation. It doesn't matter if it's North Dakota. It doesn't matter if it's California. They are equal, which means when the Republican Party strengthens its grip on smaller states, states that traditionally had a history of being ancestrally Democratic. I know Democrats really don't like that term because that really indicates that they aren't going to be winning there for quite some time. North Dakota, Montana, South Dakota, Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, the entire South, ancestry Democrat. And I really just don't see that returning. So looking at the Senate map, what jumps out to you? You know, if we're applying the 2016 results, we actually don't see much changing. There are Democrats in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. The reason why they are red is because these are the senators that are up, and also it matches the 2016 election results. But if we were to apply it to 2020, it would actually just look a little bit more blue because I am choosing the outside state to represent it. So the smaller circle is just the other Senate seat. It doesn't really matter which one is which. Typically, if both are Democrat or Republican, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two at all. But when we're seeing, you know, a Democrat-Republican, you can sort of understand that. But this is based off the 2016 map. And as you can see, it almost closely mimics what we see on the presidential level. Here's the presidential results. Georgia does not have any races in because we don't have the runoff election results yet. Obviously, it's on January 5th. So these are the results based off the presidential election. Look at the Senate map. Presidential election, Senate map. Arizona flipped. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Democratic senators. Michigan has 2. Arizona has 2. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania have 1 Democrat each. So looking at a lot of these states, a lot of them just closely mimic what we see. A lot of states, most states, have 2 of the same political party, even if it is a swing state. Look at Nevada, a swing state very much on the presidential level. Joe Biden won that state by 2.4%. Arizona, a swing state on the presidential level, won by Joe Biden by less than 1 percentage point, 0.3. 2 Democratic senators. Look at, other states. Minnesota, Donald Trump lost this state by 7 points. That's pretty good, I would say, for someone who's expected to lose by a larger amount, especially in a state with 2 Democratic senators. Take a look at Michigan, a state that Joe Biden won in this election by just a little bit under 3 points. 2 Democratic senators. A lot of these states are becoming solid in terms of how they're voting, and it closely reflects what we see on the presidential map. In 2022, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania both have seats up for grabs. Currently, there are 2 Republicans in both of these states that are Republican from Biden states. We have Wisconsin, we have Pennsylvania, and we have Maine. That's it. Those are the only Republicans in Democratic states on the presidential level. I haven't mentioned Georgia because we don't know how the results are going to turn out. It could be 2 additional Republicans from a Biden state. But looking at what we've seen so far, it's that almost every single state closely mimics where it votes on the presidential margin. Let's talk about states with Democrats under a President Trump state. As recently as 2018, John Tester, a Democrat from Montana, and Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, won their Senate races. Montana is a state that Donald Trump won by 16 points, 15 points. West Virginia is a state that Donald Trump won by nearly 30 points. Montana, West Virginia have no reason, really, based off of their presidential results, to even be competitive on the Senate level, much less Democratic victories as recently as 2 years ago, when they had very similar margins of victory for the Republican Party on the presidential level. But West Virginia and Montana are 2 states where we see Democrats from Trump states. And then the final state, the state of Ohio, taking a look at our Ohio results, an 8.1 margin of victory for Donald Trump, an 8.1% margin of victory. That is a swing of 0.1 in favor of the Democratic Party. 0.1 from 2016. Ohio is not super competitive, but they do have a Democrat from a Trump state. So assuming that every state actually mimicked what we saw on the presidential level, the Democratic Party, I believe, would have the narrow majority just by 50-50, because the Republicans would lose, the Democrats would lose in Montana, they would lose in Ohio, and they would lose in West Virginia. And this would be the map, 50-50. But the thing is, Joe Biden did not need both Georgia and Arizona. I'm giving them to him because he won Georgia on the presidential level, so I'm assuming those two seats would go to the Democrats in this scenario. And Arizona, I'm assuming, remains in the Democratic column. It very well could. There's a possibility a Republican wins in 2022, but both of those senators are very strong candidates. And Mark Kelley was just sworn in yesterday. These races could be very solid for the Democratic Party in the future. But looking at the Senate results and comparing it to the presidential results, if we apply the same map, it's 50-50. But if we were working with the 2016 map, look at how drastic it changes. It's not a 50-50 majority for Donald Trump. It would be a 60-40 majority. The Democrats could have just won through the Rust Belt. They could have just won through Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That would have gotten them over 270 electoral votes. But where does that put them on the Senate map? 54-46. Because of our increasing polarization and the fact that the country could be voting with the majority candidate, Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton, could be voting for him in the Electoral College in the case of Joe Biden without Arizona and Georgia and still win the presidency, but the Senate map would still reflect something 54-46. May draw up questions about whether or not the Senate is truly representative of democracy. And obviously, the Senate was drawn this way for a reason. It was made so that smaller states would have equal representation as larger states. But some people are still upset about that. A lot of people are still saying that the Constitution itself is inherently flawed. I don't think this would ever change. Our Senate is never going to change. But this may not be something that the Democratic Party could do, but it incentivizes them to add additional states, such as the District of Columbia and the state of Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico. Both of those, if they become states, would expand the Democratic Party's eventual majority in the United States Senate whenever they get it, or minority up to a point where it could be a majority. But they would have to be in the majority in order to pass these states in the first place. But that is just wishful thinking for the Democrats. It probably isn't going to happen in the near future. Otherwise, they will pay a hefty price for that at the midterm elections. But let's go ahead and revert back to what we were looking at. I just think that it's fascinating that a lot of these states really just mimic exactly what they do on the presidential margin. It's almost predictable for a lot of these states. And that actually is. You could very well draw a conclusion about a certain state immediately based off of how they voted on the presidential level, and it would make sense. I believe I have an additional, yes, I do, up in the state of Maine. I have an additional Democratic state. But the map right now should be 50, 48, and 2, with those Georgia Senate races making or breaking the Senate composition. But the fact that we closely mimic what we see also spells out bad news for a lot of split-ticket voting. A lot of Democrats in some Republican areas were counting on the fact that they were well-known. They are incumbents. They are liked by their constituents. And just because they are a Democrat does not fundamentally change the way they are viewed by their constituents. This election changed that. A number of Democrats survived in 2016. They survived Donald Trump being elected on the presidential ballot. But due to work by both political parties, America is more polarized than where it was 4 years ago. And I know that may seem insane, but it is. America has gotten more and more polarized. Take a look at the House map in 1992, where you actually see a number of districts decided by less than 5 points. This time, that map is very slim. There's barely any districts on that map. And we don't see a lot of crossover either. The presidential results and the House results almost matched each other as well. The margin of victory in the popular vote was roughly similar, just a percentage point more in favor of the GOP. But other than that, we saw the results almost the exact same. The Democratic Party won 50.7% of the vote. The Republican Party won 47.9%. This lack of split-ticket voting really hurt the Democratic Party's chances at winning the United States Senate. They needed to pick up more than Colorado and Arizona. And because we saw lack of split-ticket voting, Doug Jones was defeated by more than 20 points in Alabama. As the first Democrat to serve there in 25 years when he entered into office in 2017, he was the next one to lose. He lost by over 20 points to Tommy Tuberville. Doug Jones was not going to hold on. He was not going to win that race. And a lot of people knew that. But people did not expect him to lose by 20 points. This is almost mimicking what we saw on the presidential margin. Look at Donald Trump's victory over Joe Biden in this state. Sure, it's larger, but it's comparable. I mean, it's comparable to the result in the state of Alabama. So I think Democrats are probably upset that the split ticket voting really didn't come through. And actually, the only state where it did come through in this entire election is Maine, and it worked against the Democratic Party's favor. The entire Senate is mimicking exactly what we see on the presidential margin. And while some people may not see a problem with that, as soon as we see the retirement of Joe Manchin, as soon as we see the retirement of Pat Toomey and Ron Johnson and also Sherrod Brown and John Tester and Susan Collins, these races will probably remain the same way for decades to come. It's going to take a different type of force in order to win in some of these more Democratic states, some of these more Republican states. And both political parties are going to have a very troubled time doing it if the results are just going to continue to match what they vote for on the presidential level. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 post-election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.